Okay, so have you ever thought about, like, what is it about power that just kind of grabs us? Like that wanting to know how some people just seem to get what they want and how influence really works.
Yeah, definitely. It's like we want to crack the code, you know?
Absolutely. It's like we're drawn to it, right?
Okay.
Like as learners, we want to understand it, but it's like we don't want to get lost in all the details.
Totally. And that's what we're doing today, diving into the ideas of Robert Greene.
Robert Greene, exactly. He's like the name when it comes to understanding power, right?
Yeah, his books, The 48 Laws of Power, The Art of Seduction, they've become like essential reading.
Yeah, for sure. They're like the go-to guides if you want to figure out all the hidden stuff and how people act, you know?
Yeah, the subtle stuff, the stuff we don't always talk about.
Exactly. So for this deep dive, we really went deep into a recent interview with Greene.
Really fascinating interview.
Yeah, super interesting, where he talks about his own life,
Yeah.
his work, and just like the forces that drive us, you know, human behavior.
It's a broad look, too.
Yeah, and think about it. He talks about everyone from Machiavelli to Jay-Z,
Right.
from the court of Louis XIV to like Drake's world.
Crazy.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. Like he uses this whole range of examples to show us the rules of power.
The unspoken rules, for
Yeah,
sure.
the stuff no one really teaches you, right?
Yeah.
So in this deep dive, we're going to pull out the core of what he thinks about power,
Okay.
seduction, mastery, and just human nature in general.
Sounds good.
And we want to make sure it connects with you,
Mm.
you know, like something you can actually use and understand
Mm.
without it being too much information.
Yeah, and I think it's really important to note, too, that Greene's perspective isn't just for, like, politicians or CEOs or anything.
Right, it's for everyone.
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
relevant to us every day in our lives, like how we interact with our families,
Yeah.
our friends, our coworkers.
Right, like all those little power struggles.
Exactly. It's everywhere.
So let's get into it, starting with the beginning.
Okay.
The interview talks about how the 48 Laws of Power even came about, like the origin story. So Greene's early career was all over the place. He did construction, he was a detective, even a tour guide in Spain.
Wow. Sounds like he was really trying to experience everything he could.
Yeah, and in the interview, he actually talks about having a hunger for weird experiences.
I love that.
Yeah, it's cool, right? Like,
Yeah.
he wasn't going straight for becoming a big author or anything. It was more like this deep curiosity about people.
Yeah, and about how the world works.
Yeah, like he was getting a real education in how people act in all these different situations.
It's all material, right?
Totally. And then there's this moment in Italy that's like something out of a movie.
Oh, yeah.
So he runs into this book packager just by chance.
Wow.
And all of a sudden, all these ideas about power dynamics that he'd been seeing, like especially in Hollywood, just come pouring out of him.
Like it all clicked into place.
Yeah, he actually says it was like vomiting out ideas.
Oh, wow.
And the big thing that he realized was this, even though power looks different in different times, like we don't have kings and queens anymore.
Right.
The core strategies people use to get power and keep it, they're the same.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it's like whether there's some like a Renaissance prince or like a tech CEO today,
Yeah.
the power games are still the same.
Timeless in a way.
Exactly. And for him, this was a huge moment. Like he was in his late 30s, kind of lost, even went through some really tough times.
Makes sense.
He actually borrowed money from his parents to write the book,
Wow. Big risk.
like a make or break thing.
Yeah. So what happened?
So the 48 Laws of Power comes out, and it's a huge success, but it's not like a big marketing campaign or anything.
Yeah.
It was more like this underground thing, almost like a cult thing.
Word of mouth.
Exactly. And then it just explodes.
Wow, that's amazing.
It gets huge. And he talks about how it was big in hip-hop culture.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Jay-Z, 50 Cent, Drake, they all mention it.
Ooh.
There was even this reality show about boxing.
Oh, yeah. I remember that one.
And one of the finalists said the book was like his secret weapon.
Crazy how it went from underground to mainstream.
I know, it's wild.
It really shows you how relevant those ideas are, you know?
Yeah, for sure. It shows those power dynamics are everywhere, from business to entertainment.
It's human nature.
Exactly. So it's interesting to hear how his own view on the book has changed over time.
How so?
Well, he knows that some people see it as like a dark guide to manipulation.
Yeah, I can see that.
And he actually says that his later book, Mastery, was kind of a response to that.
Oh, interesting.
Like he was worried that young people especially would only focus on the manipulative side of power.
Like they'd miss the bigger picture.
Exactly.
Right.
And it makes sense. Like the 48 Laws is about understanding how things really work.
Yeah, the reality of it all.
But there's a danger in only focusing on the manipulation part.
Right. You need to develop your skills to your own character.
Yeah, exactly. So let's get to how Greene actually defines power.
Oh.
Because it's not just about being president or a CEO, right?
Yeah, it's deeper than that.
So how does he see it?
He describes power as a feeling and emotion, like a basic human need and desire. Oh, interesting.
And it comes down to having a sense of control and understanding.
Starting with yourself.
Yeah, exactly. Like knowing yourself first.
And he says it's not just for like famous people or whatever, it's in our daily lives too.
Yeah, like everyday interaction.
Like how we talk to our kids, our spouses, our coworkers.
Everyone.
He even says that feeling like you have no control in your own life, that's like a really bad experience.
Yeah, it can be crushing.
He actually talks about that Malcolm X quote, you know, the one about power corrupting.
Yeah.
And he says absolute powerlessness that corrupts even more.
Powerful statement.
Yeah, it really shows you how bad it is to feel totally helpless.
Makes sense.
So understanding power isn't just about controlling other people, it's about understanding how the world works.
Right, being realistic about it.
Yeah, seeing the motivations and egos at play and figuring out how to deal with that.
Even with someone like your boss.
Yeah, exactly. So you can avoid problems and get what you want.
Makes you a better player of the game. Okay, so now let's get into this mask and the actor thing.
Interesting.
Greene mentions this book, The Fall of Public Man,
Okay.
by Richard Sennett. And he talks about how in the 18th century, public life was almost like a play.
What do you mean?
Like people would put on this persona when they went out in public.
Like a costume almost.
Yeah, kind of. Like everyone knew it was a performance.
So was it like everyone was being fake?
Well, not exactly. It was more like there was this clear division between who you were in public and who you were in private.
And now it's all mixed up, right?
Yeah, exactly. Those lines are super blurry now, and it can be confusing.
Like, who am I really?
Yeah, and Greene uses 50 Cent as an example
Oh, cool.
of someone who's really good at putting on a public persona.
So is he saying 50 Cent is fake?
No, not really. It's more like he's saying 50 Cent knows how to play the game.
Okay.
He can put on this persona without losing himself.
Gotcha.
It's like being aware that we all have different roles to play.
Like we're all actors in a way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But we can't forget who we really are underneath it all.
Right. Like, don't lose yourself in the role.
Now let's talk about some of the more controversial stuff in the 48 Laws of Power.
Okay, this should be good.
Like law. #2, never trust friends too much. Learn how to use enemies.
Whoa. That's intense.
Yeah, it's a bit shocking, right? Especially if you really value loyalty.
Definitely.
But Greene says this law is mostly for work situations,
Oh, okay.
where being friends with someone can make it hard to make good decisions.
Yeah, I get that.
Like maybe you need to hire someone or partner with someone, and you're too close to your friend to see clearly.
Right, your judgment's clouded.
He even says sometimes the best person for the job might not be your friend.
Interesting.
And he even suggests working with an enemy can be good.
An enemy? How does that work?
Well, they might be super motivated to prove themselves.
Yeah, that's true. They'd have a point to prove.
So it's about making smart choices, not just emotional ones.
I see the logic.
Another law that people get worked up about is law #3, conceal your intentions. Yeah, that seems a bit shady.
Like, isn't it all about being transparent now?
Yeah, building trust.
But again, Greene says it depends on the situation. Like with your team, you want to be open and share ideas.
Right, collaboration.
But in a super competitive environment, telling everyone your plans can backfire.
Yeah, your rivals could steal your ideas.
He actually says keeping your plans secret can be a huge advantage.
Oh, interesting.
It's like in that HBO show Succession.
Oh, yeah, good example.
Like they're always scheming and hiding their intentions.
So create a little mystery.
Exactly. Keep people guessing what you're going to do next.
Smart.
It's like playing poker. You don't show your hand.
Right. Makes sense.
So now the question is anyone immune to these power games?
Yeah, is anyone above it all?
Greene says no way, we're all part of it.
Everyone plays the game.
And to prove his point, he talks about people like Mahatma Gandhi and Martin Luther King Jr.
Really?
Yeah, even though they fought for good causes, they were still using power dynamics.
How so? Well, Gandhi used nonviolent resistance, and he knew it would have a huge impact on public opinion.
Oh, okay. Yeah, seeing those images on TV.
And Martin Luther King Jr. decided to have kids in the marches.
That's risky.
Yeah, but he knew it would create a powerful reaction and put pressure on the government.
Huh. I never thought of it like that.
So it shows that even these amazing leaders, they understood power.
They were playing the game, too.
And this leads to the idea of the shadow self. Like the parts of ourselves that we don't like to admit are there.
A dark side.
Yeah. Greene says we all have those tendencies to be irrational, jealous, aggressive.
Even narcissistic.
Yeah. And the problem is when we think we're better than that,
Like we're above it.
yeah, we need to be self-aware and realize we all have that potential.
That's a tough one.
He even talks about narcissism as something that can be healthy.
Healthy narcissism? How's that possible?
Well, he says it can be a drive to achieve things.
Oh, okay, like channeled in the right way.
Exactly. So it's not always bad. It's about understanding it in ourselves. Okay, let's talk about confidence now.
Cool. Everyone wants more of that.
And Greene says you can't fake real confidence.
Mm.
It has to come from somewhere real.
Okay.
He says there's fake confidence, like when you're just trying to act tough.
Yeah, putting on a show.
But people can see through that, especially if they're good at reading people.
So how do you get real confidence then?
Greene says it comes from real accomplishment skills, a record of achievements.
Like you've actually done stuff.
Exactly. And here's the surprising part. He says looks and money aren't everything.
Really?
Yeah, when it comes to things like seduction, he says it's more about your psychology and how you carry yourself.
So it's about inner game, not outer game.
Exactly. It's more about understanding people, being confident in who you are.
I like that.
Okay, now let's talk about body language.
Oh, that's a big one.
Yeah, it's like this silent language we're always using.
Always sending and receiving signals.
And Greene says it can tell you more than words.
Huh.
Yeah, our bodies reveal a lot.
Like what kinds of things?
Well, he talks about how you can tell a real smile from a fake one.
Oh, yeah. How do you do that?
It's about the eyes.
Yeah.
The muscles around the eyes have to be engaged.
Makes sense.
And your voice can give you away too, even if you're trying to sound confident.
Oh, yeah. Like if you're nervous, your voice gets shaky.
Exactly. And it could be little things like your posture, how you take up space, even which way your feet are pointing.
Wow. I never noticed that.
He even talks about this guy, Milton Erickson, who was paralyzed.
Oh, wow.
And because of that, he became like a master of reading body language
Interesting.
because he couldn't move.
Yeah.
He paid extra attention to how other people moved.
That makes sense.
But here's the thing. Greene says, trying to control every little movement, that's too much.
Yeah, it'd be exhausting.
It's more about feeling confident on the inside, and then it'll show naturally.
Gotcha.
So this brings us to mastery,
Yeah.
which is like a counterpoint to the 48 laws.
We talked about that a little bit before.
Yeah, and Greene wrote it because he was worried about young people getting obsessed with manipulation
Yeah.
and not focusing on real skills.
He's concerned about this whole quick and easy mentality.
Or like instant gratification.
Exactly. Like we want results right away, and that's hurting our ability to learn things deeply.
Yeah, like becoming a master takes time.
He talks about how our brains work, how we build skills through repetition over time.
It's like that 10,000 hours idea, right?
Yeah, and he says it's often even more than that.
To really master something.
Yeah, that constant need for instant gratification, it's holding us back from achieving mastery.
Because mastery takes patience.
Yeah, and Greene says that mastery is actually how you build real self-esteem and confidence.
That makes sense. You feel good about yourself when you're good at something.
So the journey to mastery starts with finding your life's task,
Okay.
which is different from just your passion.
Why does he make that distinction?
Well, he's not a big fan of the word passion.
Really?
Why not?
He thinks it's misleading because becoming a master takes a lot of work.
Yeah, it's not always fun and games.
He says there's going to be boring parts, frustration, and a lot of effort.
So it's about sticking with it even when it's tough.
And the real joy of mastery comes after years of dedication.
Like when it becomes second nature.
Exactly. And he says to figure out your life's task, you got to look back at your childhood.
Oh, interesting.
Like, what were you drawn to as a kid? What really interested you?
Makes sense.
He also talks about Howard Gardner's 5 frames of mind.
Okay, I'm not familiar with that.
So Gardner says there are different types of intelligence, not just book smarts.
Like different ways of being smart?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And it's about finding what you're naturally good at, what feels like a good fit.
Like a calling almost?
Yeah. And he says your 20s are super important for developing those skills.
Okay.
And your life's task isn't necessarily a specific job.
So it's more like a direction.
Exactly. And Greene says if you don't pursue your life's task, you're going to be unhappy.
Powerful stuff.
And once you know your direction, it's all about the apprenticeship phase.
Okay.
And this is where a lot of people get it wrong.
How so?
They focus too much on money early on in their careers.
Yeah, I gotta pay the bills.
But Greene says you should prioritize learning opportunities over a big salary,
Oh, interesting.
especially at the beginning.
Okay.
It's better to be the right-hand man or woman to someone who's really good at what they do.
Even if it's a smaller company or a tough environment.
Exactly. Because you'll get more responsibility and learn way more.
And you would at a big company just starting out.
Yeah, and he talks about deep observation during this apprenticeship phase.
What's that mean?
It means paying attention to the unspoken rules,
Yeah.
the little details, how things really get done.
It's absorbing everything you can.
Yeah, and finding people who are doing it right and learning from them.
Like mentors.
Exactly. Like it's
Yeah.
all about learning by doing,
Not just reading books.
hands-on experience. That's how our brains are wired to learn.
Cool.
So the interview gets really personal when Greene talks about his stroke.
Oh, wow. I didn't know about that.
It happened in 2018.
Mm.
It was a huge turning point for him.
Yeah. A stroke is serious business.
So he was paralyzed on his left side and had to relearn basic stuff.
Like walking and talking.
Yeah. And at his age, it was incredibly hard.
I can't even imagine.
And he's really honest about how tough it was.
Yeah.
He went through denial and then depression.
That's understandable.
Like he had to adjust to this whole new reality and find new ways to be happy.
So what helped him get through it?
Well, he kept writing, which gave him a sense of purpose.
That's great.
And he started meditating every day.
Yeah, that can be really helpful.
And he would consciously shift his perspective by thinking about people who had it even worse.
That's a good technique.
Yeah, it helped him stay grateful.
Powerful.
And thinking about happiness, he says, it's not this end goal you reach, it's an ongoing process.
So there are ups and downs.
Exactly. And he emphasizes having a purpose, connecting with people, and appreciating the little things.
The things we take for granted.
Yeah, so going through this experience, did it change his view on humanity?
Yeah, did he become more or less optimistic?
He says he's maybe more loving, but not necessarily more optimistic.
Okay.
He talks about the Zen Buddhist idea of seeing things as they are without judging them.
Just observing.
But he's worried about technology being misused and corrupted.
Yeah, that's a valid concern.
But he's hopeful about young people.
But really?
Yeah, he sees them as rebellious, wanting to change things.
Makes sense they're inheriting a messed up world.
And he even has this recurring dream about a positive future in the year 2072.
That's cool.
Like he's acknowledging the failures of past generations and hoping for something better.
Passing the torch.
So finally, when was he happiest?
Good question.
He says it was when the 48 Laws of Power became a success.
Oh, wow.
He was 38 at the time.
Yeah.
And it was like going from total struggle to suddenly having everything.
Like hitting the jackpot?
Yeah, and because he'd been through so much hardship before, it made the success even sweeter.
He really appreciated it.
And even though the initial excitement has faded, he's still incredibly grateful.
That's great to hear.
And he still gets those moments of pure joy. Like he talks about having dinner with Stevie Wonder.
Oh, wow.
Like that's a pretty amazing experience.
Yeah. Sounds surreal.
So his story really shows that happiness comes from overcoming challenges, finding your purpose.
And appreciating the journey.
So we've covered a lot today, really diving deep into Robert Greene's ideas.
We've gone deep, for sure.
And now you, our listener, you've got a deeper understanding of power, human behavior, and how to grow as a person.
And for you, the learner, the biggest takeaway here is self-awareness.
Knowing yourself.
Understanding your motivations, even the dark sides of yourself.
And seeing those power dynamics at play everywhere.
It's all about being a better player of the game.
So here's something to think about as we wrap up Greene's big message, is that these human dynamics, they're always there.
Yeah.
So how can you use this knowledge in your everyday life?
In your interactions, your goals, even how you see the world.
It's about taking those ideas and making them work for you.
Yeah, personalize them.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
It's been a pleasure.
We'll see you next time.